fans, and welcome back to another great episode of the Three Man Rush. I'm the big OJ Ostroski. She is Sara Larson, and we'll get into a bunch of football here in a moment. We got college football, some pro football. We'll tell you about what we're going to do as we move towards the off season. Some really cool stuff here. I think some unprecedented stuff here that will take place on the Three Man Rush vidcast show right here, brought to you by Buffalo Rumblings. Also brought to you by the best pizza in Buffalo. That's right. And this three-man rush episode on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network is presented by Picasso's Pizza. Treat yourself to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's, we are Buffalo's Pizza, shipping local and nationwide. Order online at picassospizza.net. We're back for another episode. Regular season's winding down. College football's over with. We got Wildcard Weekend this weekend, Sarah. I will say this. It's nice to see you like not in 18 layers of clothes because you're in a blizzard. I think this is the first time in about a month and a half you actually look like you might be enjoying the weather.
A little bit, yeah. It's been like 80 to 81 last couple of days. No, not a cloud in the sky. It's been pretty nice. It gets a little hot though because I got so used to the cold that I feel like I'm constantly having a fan on me. So I actually just turned it off a second ago. But yeah, I mean it's been nice. It's going to be short lived because back to Buffalo on Saturday. So and it's supposed to be pretty. It's supposed to be nice though. 31-ish at game time. So I'm looking forward to having a nice semi-warm game. Hopefully.
I have to say, I have acquired something that I'm awful proud of, and as a Bills, as a supporter of the Buffalo Bills, I had the opportunity finally after all these years. I don't know if you noticed or not. Starter jackets are back in style.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know. I have not shown the world yet. I'm thinking about putting it out on Twitter later on, but I have acquired a Bills starter coat, satin style, the whole
Nice.
shebang. So
Nice.
I've gone way back to my childhood.
Yeah.
I'm excited, and also I've got a Josh Allen jersey coming to the house. So
Hey.
I'm getting ready for the playoffs. I don't know about you,
I
but
love it. I love it.
I'm
Yeah, I
acquiring
have a
some
starter
gear.
jacket from 1992 that I still have.
Nice.
I don't wear it because I'm so afraid that I'm going to do something to it. But then I also bought a newer one. I shouldn't say I bought it. Someone bought it for me a couple years ago, but it's one
Right.
of the ones that go over your
Oh,
head.
you got the hood, yeah.
Um, and it's so hard to wear when you have layers on. So I've only
Right.
wore it a couple times. I usually wear it when it's not too cold yet. But I definitely love the starter jackets. So I want a
This
full
is
zip one next.
well,
So
this is old school buttons, Bills on the back, satin blue logo on the left chest.
love it, love it.
Yeah.
I am really bad with jackets. People think that it's funny because I live in Florida. It's not like I'm ever wearing them,
Right.
but I probably have about 12 or 13 jackets, and I actually just bought the one that's behind me, the sparkly one for New Year's Eve.
I did see
So
that.
yeah, my son actually was like, I didn't buy you anything for Christmas. I'll go halves with you. I was like, oh,
Nice.
that's very sweet. So I went and I got it. It was the last one, last one in the store. I was very excited to get it. But I am
Sweet.
definitely bad when it comes to jackets. I love them, especially Bill's jackets.
Definitely.
But
I don't know. You want to obviously we got to get into this, and we can talk Bills, and we're going to talk Bills, but
yeah,
obviously we got to get into this because our focus every week, folks, is college football. We like to talk about college football, and I'm excited as we get to the end of the show to let everybody in a little bit on what they're getting ready to experience here on Three Man Rush. But 65-7,
it
mind
was
blown.
quite literally the worst game ever, not only in national championship history, but according to ESPN, the info and stats, it was literally the worst game ever in bowl history, going back to the BCS. It was absolutely just terrible. Max Duggan and Quentin Johnson, they just never got going. Georgia's defense was just too much for them. It was terrible. I have like literally no words, but there was a part of me, and then a couple people texted me, "You said it all year. You felt like the top 3, which at the time was Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU, were not tested. And UCS, or USC, excuse me, were all not tested with actual, like, stiff competition. Within their divisions and within their conferences, they were tested. But, throughout the whole college football hemisphere, they weren't. They didn't play quality teams. Now we had a couple, I will give Ohio State, they played Penn State and they played Michigan, but they lost to Michigan. So there was a couple of games here and there, yes, but when you looked at Georgia, they faced an SEC conference that is just better than most of the other conferences. So I am, we talked about this in the past. I'm very excited for the expanded playoffs that are going to come 2 years, the 24-25 season. So it'll be in January of 2025 where the national championship will have come down to the 12
Right.
teams. A lot of people have been asking questions about how that's going to work. The top 6 conference winners will get the first 6 spots, and then the top 6 other teams, wherever they fall, or whatever conference they fall in, they will get also selected. So that will round out the 12. And then the 4 highest ranked conference winners will also get a bye week. They'll earn a bye week. So for those of you that haven't seen how that's happening, now we do have to wait one more year for it, unfortunately, but I'm definitely looking forward to that change. One of the other things I know I've mentioned before is, some of these bowl games that are kind of getting a little out of control. Do we need so many games? And one of the things that they've been talking about is whether or not they should require 8 wins to be able to qualify for a bowl. Right now it's at 6, which most teams play 12. So it's basically saying if you won half your games, you're bowl eligible. So I'm definitely a proponent of having it move to 8. I don't know what your feelings are. I know you
Well, honestly,
appreciate bowl
Sarah,
games.
if you move to 8, Miami won't be playing in any bowl games ever. So you might want
Oh,
to make sure we don't get to 8. But what I will say is this. I want to go back a little bit to when we started talking about this game. I thought as a player and a person that's played in some big football games, I thought that TCU came out really, really tight. And it wasn't just the players. I thought the sideline was tight. I thought the team was tight. And, is that this people forget this is a team that won, I think, 2 games or 3 games the year before, and now they're in a national championship game. These coaches have done a tremendous job of rebuilding that roster and rebuilding the team, but they just didn't have the experience that Georgia had. Georgia, if you look at like the week before, for all intents and purposes, they got beat by Ohio State. I thought we talked about this.
mm-hmm.
Marvin Harrison III goes out and changes complexity of the game.
Yep, if he wasn't injured.
But that's also where some of these teams like Georgia are able to absorb things like that. They probably have a second or third wide receiver just as good that they can bring off the bench. I think what we've seen in college football playoff scenario is this, Sarah. I think unlike the NFL, in college football, it seems ever since they've gone to this, there is one team that is superior over everybody else. And it's just a team that is dominant and a team that it's almost like, from the first day that this is a team that's probably going to win the national championship. And, with the system we have in place, you can't have any hiccups. And it does make the regular season really important, which is, I think, something that needs to stay in place. That regular season does need to be important. The thing I like about the 12 games, or 12 teams rather, or the 8 teams. We're going to 12 or are we going to 8? I can't remember.
We're going to 12.
We're
Yeah,
going to 12,
it's going to
which
be
I
the
think
first.
is good. Yeah.
Yeah, first 4 will have a bye, and then the other 8 will play.
Which I think is great because it takes teams like Alabama that had some hiccups early in the year. It allows them to be in the playoff. Okay, it takes some teams that maybe are really good and can go ahead and compete against some of these top echelon teams and brings them back into play because, you're adding more teams to the playoff.
Right.
I don't I don't think TCU was a trash team. I think TCU was a very, very good team. I think Ohio State was a very, very good team. I think Michigan was a very, very good team. I think Georgia was light years ahead of
Right.
everybody.
That's the argument. Yep.
Right.
And that's once you start playing more games though, in order to get in there, you're gonna weed that out because hopefully, at least at least in my eyes, you're gonna take away that possibility of a game like this, of what just
Right.
happened. So I also like the fact that you have the lower conferences that don't really get seen, that they're going to get a chance to, if they're 13-0 and they're
Right.
ranked at all, they're going to get a chance to make it into the playoffs. So we're taken away from that argument that the UCFs, were a couple years ago, everyone
Mhm.
crowned them national
No, no, no,
champions
no,
with
no,
an
no, no.
asterisk.
Not everyone. Not
Well,
everyone.
yeah,
You
but
have
it's
UCF and their fans crown them national champions.
yeah, so little things like that I'm looking forward to be able to see so that we kind of take away that narrative. But I mean, you're right. It's all these teams were very good teams. It's just there was one that was just
Like,
light years
are
ahead.
we ever going to see? Are we ever going to see? And we had one a few years ago. We had when Tua came in, I believe, in the second half and beats Georgia. Even that was a little bit. I don't want to say suspect. It was, they traded blows and I think they split that year.
Hmm.
But are we ever going to see an LSU, a Joe Burrow LSU team versus that juggernaut Alabama team in 11 and 12, or even last year's Georgia team or this year's, are we going to see that? And with the SEC smashing each other during the regular season, and sometimes they don't play one another, but I just believe that this expansion to 12 brings more teams in. Now, to go back to your suggestion of moving to 8 wins to get into a bowl game, well, first of all, if you do that, you're going to have to cull a bunch of games.
Hmm.
And honestly, I don't. To me, it's like getting rid of football teams. Dropping programs and things like that. The more football, the better. And I do believe that for some of these schools that don't have the ability to possibly get into the playoff, or if they don't get into the playoff for a few years and they cycle through and then they have a magical year and they get in, these bowl games are opportunities for them. So if 6 wins, they have trouble finding teams with 6 wins now. If you went ahead and went to 8, we'd have like 6 bowl games, not counting the playoffs.
No, I think we would have a little bit more, but I get your point. I know you're
Yeah,
not a proponent of taking away games. I just feel like some of the bowl games are starting to be a little pointless. And then you have, you know, to me, I don't understand, why we're doing it for the viewership. If the viewership's not is low, you hardly have, 500 people in the stands sometimes
but
with some of
that's
these
not what.
games.
But that's
I
not
get
why they
it.
have bowl games. They
I
have them
get
for
it.
TV. And I get that. I mean, it's content, as we know, content creation is king or
Yeah.
queen, depending on how you want to look at it. And and that's why ESPN pays a conference like the American Athletic Conference. They pay their teams like $7 million a year when a
Yep.
lot of their games or most of their contests are on ESPN Plus. It builds that platform. So I don't know. I just hate taking opportunities away from kids. I know I went to 2 bowl games in 4 years in college. It was a wonderful experience. My son's going to 1 in 2 years, and I know that they had a blast.
Yeah.
Even though it was the Myrtle Beach Bowl and
So
they
the
played, they played at Coastal Carolina Stadium. It was still a wonderful time.
So the question I have for you is if you don't add to the eligibility requirements and we keep the amount of games with the amount
Yes.
of people who are declaring and the amount of people who are sitting out bowl games, do you think it makes the bowl games, worth even less at this point? Like what's the point if you're not going to actually have real competition? And I know you've stated where you're giving the younger kids the opportunity and the
Yep.
practices and everything. So for you it's all about getting them still out on the field, giving them the experience and the
Well, it's not even
opportunity.
that. It's actually giving them a reward for working their rear ends off.
Okay.
Because if you know the workload of a college athlete, whether it's a football player all the way down to a track athlete, I'm not saying it's just football.
Right.
College athletes in general are to be able to play a Division I sport at that level and also be good in school or go to class. It's extremely tough. and time requirements and the amount of energy it takes.
Yep.
I like just the kids to have reward. I mean, it's something that's nice for them to go blow off some steam, have a good time. A lot of them are going to hang out with their buddies for the last time because guys are graduating. As much as much as we try to hammer college athletes, if you have a situation where you reward them for something, I'm all about it.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Jerry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just said, as much as we like to hammer college athletes about all different things, when we have a situation where we're rewarding them for all their hard work they put in for the year, I'm all about that. I don't
Yeah,
have a problem
I
with
agree. Okay. Well, with that being said, college football is over with for the season. We're gonna be moving to the off season, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But it's a very fun weekend coming up. We got Wildcard
Yes.
Weekend, so we're gonna take a look at all the
Which
games.
is usually the college football playoff weekend of the playoffs in the NFL. You got a bunch of mismatches and games that a lot of times aren't very good.
Yeah, what's been interesting the last 2 years though, is that 4 and 5 matchup. A lot of times the fifth seed is actually a better team or
Right.
better record than the fourth seed. So I think we're gonna experience that a little bit this week as well. So the first game we're gonna be talking about is the Seahawks at the 49ers. The point spread is 9.5 in favor of San Francisco, and the over/under is 42.5. So this game is the first game on Saturday at 4:30. How are you feeling?
I actually like the 49ers. And by the way, if you are listening, and I will remember to say it this time, hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, do whatever, hammer it, spike it, throw it, but hit the like and subscribe button. And also we
I have
have
a
the comment
reminder here,
section.
Jerry. I have a
Yep.
reminder.
And we have the comment section over here. If you want to have some comments for the show, if you have a question, you can go ahead and chime in on the comment section. We'll answer it. But I actually the 49ers are kind of my out of nowhere. I should say out of nowhere, but you would think with Brock Purdy as their quarterback, I wouldn't be saying this, but I really like the Niners to get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. I think they're a tremendously balanced team. I think they do everything well to protect a young quarterback like Purdy. And I will say this, Sarah, and I think this is interesting. We're falling into this a little bit. When you when you start looking at these kids come out of college, we want to constantly say, well, they're a rookie, they're a rookie. I think Brock Purdy played like 18 years at Iowa State before he got to the league.
Well,
You know what I mean?
he did play a full 4 years. So
But he
I don't know
played
about
more. I think he
18, but
played like he got COVID years, he got
oh well, yeah,
non-COVID years.
yeah.
So it's like I think he's a little bit more experienced than most. But I like the Niners in this game.
I think
I like
everyone's
them.
putting him, putting that title, the Mr. Irrelevant,
Yeah,
last pick of
yeah,
the draft. A lot of people put that on him. If he was undrafted, I don't think it would be as big of
right.
a point. But it's fun. It's a narrative that we all like to jump on. But I honestly think that with all the weapons he has around him and that defense, he's going to do just fine. He's going to continue. I have been rooting for Seattle. I'm very happy for Gino to be able to be in the playoffs to begin with. He took a team that most people thought, excuse me, most people thought were going to finish last, and got him into the playoffs. So I do also agree 49ers swept Seattle this year. I think it'll continue. um so I have 49ers with the points too. So that's 49ers negative 9.5 is my
If
pick.
and Daryl talks about in the comments, he talks about the defense is tremendous, and we agree on that, and we all agree on that. But I just really believe that Shanahan has built a football team, and John Lynch has built a football team that is built to win games in January and February.
Yeah,
And if Nick Bosa can stay healthy, he was a little bit banged up last week. If Bosa can stay healthy, and that defense stays healthy, I mean, they're just
yeah.
dangerous.
And I
So
think with the addition of McCaffrey, it even gives them another another avenue. So they're a dangerous team, and I definitely wouldn't want to face them. At the beginning of the season, I did have Philadelphia as my Super Bowl favorites before the
Really?
season started. I did. Um,
Really?
and I did. Yeah, you
Wow.
can go back. I did.
Uh,
But
wow.
I actually feel like Hurts might be a little too hurt, and I don't know if he's going to be 100% in the
Well, did you
playoffs.
watch the game? Did you see the game this past weekend?
Uh-huh.
I thought he threw the ball well, but it was obvious he was not taking the
Yeah,
chances running the football the way he does now. Playoff time is a little bit different. What's nice for them is
they got the
if
week
there's
off.
a team that needs a bye week, it is them. But
Yep.
I just, it's really still hard for me to think about him playing that well. Watching him in college and even at Oklahoma, he had numbers, but still he was just not a great passer. And you know, maybe I know everybody talks about McDermott being the coach of the year, and I think he probably should be, but maybe Nick Sirianni, just the fact that he got Jalen Hurts to play the way he's playing, needs to be the
Well, at
coach
least
of the
Nick
year.
is in the discussions because I haven't seen McDermott in a lot of the discussions. So
Yeah, I haven't
I've
either.
been I've been a little disappointed in seeing that. But so I think we both have San Francisco
I got
pretty
San Fran
much
covering the points. Yep.
covering too. Yep. All right. So next is the Giants at Minnesota. Minnesota is the 3-point favorites, and the over/under is 48. This is Sunday 4:30 game. I personally think this will be the one upset of the weekend. I honestly think the Giants are going to pull it out. I really like what Daniel Jones how he's been playing, and I think Saquon has been doing his thing, and I kind of feel like they're going to exploit Minnesota's defense, which we've seen. The problem is once you get ahead, you gotta keep it. You got to keep that lead. Minnesota did beat the Giants. I believe it was Christmas Day or the day before Christmas, one of those. And it was like that last second field
Right.
goal. I think it was like a 60-yard field goal, ridiculous field goal. So we know that they're going to be competitive against each other, and we know the Giants can do it. But what stood out to me of that game was how the Giants' offense was. They were just
Right.
lighting it up the whole time. So I think it's going to be much the same, this time. But I think the Giants, prevail, and I have them 30-27. So that was my prediction with them.
Lighting it up with a receiver that none of you wanted.
Don't say that. Don't say that. I am not on the same hype train of Hodgins as say like Joe Miller, but I did like Hodgins, and I was always trying to get him into the game. So I'm happy. I'm happy that he's doing well.
The great debate in Buffalo. Do they have a number two receiver?
I don't know if he
Um,
would have been considered number two either. I know that he's doing well, but he's doing well on a team that pretty much needed receivers. So, I don't know if he would have ever been considered our number two as well. So, but again, wish that we gave him more opportunities than we did.
it's funny is we're starting to think alike, and that's kind of scary. Um, I actually like the Giants in this game as well. When you start looking at playoff games at home and you're only getting 3 points, nobody's really comfortable with the home team. I think Dyble's done a wonderful job. He's got the quarterback playing well. Saquon runs the football very well. I think you again, we talked about defense earlier. January and February, you win games running that ball. Also, they've played them before. They've played them tough. Um, I just think that the Giants are playing really, really good right now. I like them.
Yeah,
I'm not
and they're
sure I would
rested.
take right. They're rested, and I'm not sure I would take the over, but I definitely would. Will take the Giants, and I'll take them covering the -3. I think again, I don't know, and really to be honest with you, is it the upset of the weekend? I'm not sure. Um,
Well,
but
based on
based on
the
seeds, yes,
yeah.
based on
Well,
seeds, you're
based
right.
on seeds and based on, the the point spread, they have
Right,
Minnesota -3. So,
right.
technically I guess it would be considered the upset, but I do see a lot of people, pointing towards the Giants in this game, and I'm all for it at this point.
And that game's 3:30 on Sunday.
Well, 4:30 technically because you're an hour behind.
3:30 for me.
All right. And then the final NFC game is the Cowboys against the Bucks. Right now it's Cowboys as the 2.5 point favorites. Over under is 45.5. It's the Monday night game. It's at the Bucks, even though the Bucks had a losing record. At this point, or actually, I think they were 50. I think they finished. Yeah, no, they were 8-9. I think. I don't know. Anyways, the
They were 8 and
Cowboys.
9.
Yeah, I thought so. Um, the Cowboys have to, as the fifth seed, they have to go into Tampa. They played absolutely horrendously last weekend against the Commanders. I don't know if anyone's actually like watched that game. Dak Prescott looked terrible. So
I
when I
did.
turned on the game, I had thought, oh, Dallas is losing big. They must have rested their starters, knowing that, the Giants were resting theirs and, or maybe they at least took out their starters. I turned it on in the third quarter and Dak is still playing, Elliott's still playing, and they just looked terrible. I'm like, I think at one point, and I don't know what he finished with. I really don't, and I never went back and looked. I think he had Dak had like 33% completion rate. Like it was just the worst thing I had ever seen against a team that really wasn't playing for anything against the Commanders. So my question is, was it them just, shaking the cobwebs and being like, let's get this terrible game out of the way? Or is it something to be concerned about? We all know Brady in the playoffs. It's something to be worried about, but I am going to hopefully be right about this. And I'm going to say I'm still sticking with the Cowboys. I have them winning by 3, 27-24. But with that being said, if they play even just this much, just a minuscule amount like they did last weekend, there is absolutely no way. And Brady will end up destroying them.
No, I think you're right. If Dak protects the football, if the Cowboys protect the football, it's their football game to win. I do like the Cowboys. I like them covering. But it's funny. You look at some of these numbers. I think the Cowboys they've got tremendous talent on defense. They're not necessarily playing great defense, but they are giving up the fifth lowest points in the league, and they're also the eighth ranked passing defense in the league. Whereas the Bucks come in as the second passing offense in the league. So there's your big matchup. Are they going to be able to keep Micah Parsons off of Tom Brady? Because Tom doesn't, Tom's not dynamic, and we all know Tom's deal. Tom's got to be on his mark, his spot. If they move him, they'll have success. Can they block Micah Parsons? I'm not sure they blocked anybody very well this year in Tampa Bay as far as that goes. They just had a tremendous amount of injuries on their offensive line, but there's your two forces. You got the Cowboys pass defense versus that passing offense at Tampa Bay. Is this the last football game for Tom Brady? I think that's going to probably be the story come Monday night when the Monday
It's the
night crew
last
is
one
over.
until he decides to unretire.
Well, I mean, he had all intents and purposes of staying home until his lovely bride decided she didn't want him around anymore. So
I don't know if that's necessarily the narrative, but
they went ahead and
I think it
whatever.
might be his last game as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I'm
Yeah, but
not necessarily.
who's going to pay the money for Tom? Like, where's he going to go?
I mean, there are a lot of talks that he would go back to New England for a season. There's a lot of talks that he might go to Miami for a season. I don't want him in the East at all. So I hope he either retires or stays with the Bucks. And then some people are saying the Raiders. So we'll see. We'll see what that ends up being. But I don't know. I think the NFC needs some quarterbacks. So he can stay in the NFC for my liking.
The Raiders. If the Raiders take Tom Brady, they need to, as Von Miller would say, burn it all.
Well, I think
They
it's
need to
it's
burn the whole
more
thing.
it's more for, a year rental. I don't think it's for, anything long term or anything like
I
that,
know,
but
but
I don't think Carr is going to be back.
Sarah, if you're trying to build a franchise, okay, if you're really trying to build a franchise, are you bringing in rental quarterbacks? I mean, I
I
don't know.
mean, Denver
Maybe.
did it with Manning a couple years, a few
Well,
years back, and
that was different. I mean, Peyton, that was different.
okay.
It was a little bit. I think this was Peyton was the move like Tom made the Tampa Bay. You know what I mean? And they got the Super Bowl win, and now we're doing like we're on Joe Namath, Kenny Stabler type level. You know, these guys. You know,
I
they're going
mean,
to wheel him in on a cart.
like you said, though, and I am not. You're making me sick that I'm defending Brady right now. But you just said they
That's
are
why
the
I'm good.
second. They're the second passing offense ranked
Oh,
passing
that's because
offense
of
in the
Evans,
NFL.
not because of Brady.
Okay,
That's because of
it's
Evans.
not the one
That's
throwing the ball;
because
it's the one
that's
catching it.
because they have a number 2 receiver. That's why he's leading second.
Yeah, between Evans and Godwin. But I mean, with that being said, I hope he stays in, as a Buck if he is
Right,
going to stay in the
right.
NFL. The one thing I don't want to hear is, all of February being, about Rodgers retiring and all of March about being Brady retiring. And then in April, one of them decides to unretire. So I don't
Right.
want to I don't want that dance this year at all.
All right.
Um, but
All
moving on
right.
to the AFC, we have the Ravens and the Bengals. I wish this game was going to be more exciting, but at this point in time, Lamar, I think missed his 17th practice in a row at this point, so there's probably no chance that he's going to play. Now it's the late game. They might say, he gets in there tomorrow. I doubt it. I haven't seen him officially ruled out. But from my understanding, Huntley is going to be the one that is, starting the game. So Ravens defense is great. I think that, they could hold the Bengals to a certain extent if, they go in there playoff football. I just don't think that the offense is going to be able to click at the same level. And it might go back and forth for a little bit, but then I think the Bengals are just going to run away with it, especially at home. They are 8.5-point favorites, and I do have them covering. I have it 30-20 for the Bengals.
I'm starting to get irritated by the Bengals a little bit. They seem to be they seem to like themselves quite a bit. Now,
Yeah.
granted, they got a lot of young talent, a lot of young brash players on that team. Um, but if you were Lamar Jackson, would you play?
I mean, to be honest, and risk more injury, no. I mean,
Not after they gave the middle linebacker all the money,
right,
and
right.
they're gonna plan
And
on and
I said
obviously
the second that they signed him, to a
right.
contract extension, I was like, what does that mean for Lamar? Now, a
Well,
lot of people think that they still have the money to be able to move things around and to get him that contract, but they've offered him a substantial amount of money. They're just not offering him the guaranteed contract that he supposedly is asking for.
right. That is true. That is true. And I don't know if Lamar needs to figure out if he needs to get some different. I believe his mother is still his agent, which I
Yeah, he kind of
wonder about.
represents himself, and then
Yeah,
she comes in.
I kind of wonder about that. There are times for that, and there's times not. And um, I've seen some players getting quite a bit of get into some bad contracts because they've decided to represent themselves. I love Lamar Jackson. If I was starting a franchise, he'd be one of my top picks to be my quarterback. I like what he brings to the field. I like the way he plays. He's the absolute perfect complement to what Baltimore's always been about, and they've always been about great defense up the middle. And granted, they believe with Roquan Smith they found their next Ray Lewis, and that's
Yeah.
why they've paid him.
And by the way, he represented
Yeah,
himself as well. So
well, I
they
mean,
have something
and
going
yeah,
on there in Baltimore.
I guess, but when I look at this, I see that. I mean, I get it, and sometimes franchises fall into that trap of constantly trying to chase the past. And I love Baltimore's one of the teams I've always liked. And I just wish Lamar Jackson the best, and I hope that they re-sign him. I think it'd be silly if they don't, but the way it is now, it's set up that he's going to be franchise tag. He's going to have to get it in his mind that he's going to go without a contract again, because after this weekend or after the last couple of weeks and them re-signing Smith, he's bound to be a franchise tag player.
And after how many games has he missed in a row? 6?
I believe.
Yeah, I mean that's the part of the guaranteed money and everything else that
Well,
probably
everybody should be
scares.
guaranteed. It
Yeah,
shouldn't be just Lamar Jackson or an elite quarterback. Every player that signs a contract in the NFL should be guaranteed. And if you don't want to pay players, then don't sign them to 5-year deals. Sign them to 2-year deals, so that way you can get out of it quickly. Every player should have a guaranteed contract in the NFL.
yeah,
I'm sorry. I mean, we're the only league that does that.
yeah.
That
Then
you
and
sign a
that's the
contract, they can
argument.
fire you at any time.
Yeah, that's the argument. Not only can they fire you anytime, that one injury can end your whole entire career and you're screwed. So I agree. As somebody who loves to look at the whole, contracts and loves to look at salary caps and stuff like that, I think it should all be built in with the idea that it is all guaranteed. Out of any sport, they put their bodies on the line the most.
Right.
And I hate that they have to fight the most for, medical and everything else. And I'm
Well,
sure
we fight to an extent. We don't fight the way we should fight. We kind of faux fight. We kind of fight with socks on our hands. This last collective bargaining agreement that was negotiated, that negotiation was a farce. Um, my problem is I always say the player cannot complain about what they got in their collective bargaining agreement because they had the juice and they had the hammer and they didn't use it and they went ahead and took the easy route because they were quote unquote scared to lose money when really they had all the abilities to make more money than they do. So unfortunately, that's the way it goes. Um, I, I truly believe our union is weak. It's not the first time I've said it publicly, especially when I'm friends with guys like Mike Piazza and he tells me the stories about the baseball union. We're low rent compared to what they got going on.
I nominate you union president.
No, they don't. They'd run me out real quick because
Yeah,
there would be no behind closed doors negotiations and take an easy way out.
yeah.
We'd have, we'd have, we'd have struck.
So with that, with the Cincinnati, you said that they were annoying you, but so
No,
at
they're
this
they're
point,
they're they're a great football team, and I truly, I mean, they're tremendous. I love Joe Burrow. I've loved Joe Burrow for quite some time.
oh, he rubs me the
Um,
wrong way.
yeah,
I don't
because
know.
that's what I'm saying. That's I know Joe Mixon, and I know Joe Mixon's past. Joe Mixon needs to not be so, I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever. Um, you know, but I just love Joe Burrow. I think he's a tremendous leader. He's as good of a locker room guy as Josh Allen is. They're living parallel lives in that aspect. But I think Cincinnati's going to smash. I think
all right.
with no Lamar Jackson, they cover the 8.5 probably 2 or 3 times and win big.
Yeah. All right. So the next game we have is the Chargers against Jacksonville. Obviously, the Chargers are the fifth seed, even though they finished with the better record. Jacksonville, narrowly wins the South by beating the Titans and gets in there at the fourth seed. At the fourth seed, Chargers are 2 point favorites, give or take. I think it might be up to 2.5 now. Over under is 47.5. I think this potentially could be either the closest game or the most lopsided game. It depends on which Jacksonville Jaguars shows up. If you look back, week 3 was a very, very, very long time ago. But the Jaguars destroyed the Chargers that week. I think it was 38-10. Please correct me if I'm wrong, people. Um, but it was, a very lopsided victory. It was in SoFi. So, I kind of feel like the Chargers are a different team now. They finally kind of came together. Um, so I have the Chargers winning, but I do have it close. I wrote it down. What do I have? I have 34-31 Chargers. Um, it'll be a fun game to watch. I'm actually really interested in watching the game. I think that both teams never meeting in the both quarterbacks never being in the playoffs are gonna it's gonna be fun. I just think that the defense on the Charger side is just a smidgen better than the defense on the Jaguar side. I know that Jaguars they have their own Josh Allen, and he's been playing very, very, very well. And then, on the Charger side, Herbert just has, he's always throwing up the numbers. So you just always question whether or not the wide receivers are going to be healthy. Right now, they're both playing. So, like, I just think that they have a little bit of the edge, and then I think that the running game is just better with the Chargers. So I have them, with the spread and winning by 3.
Um, you were correct. Jacksonville won 38-10 in September.
Okay.
They played September 25th. Um, I think this game's a little bit more even than people understand. When you look at statistics and ratings, you look at Justin Herbert, threw for 4,700 yards, Trevor Lawrence 4,100, both with 25 touchdowns, both with almost the same number of interceptions, both with almost identical quarterback ratings. You look at rushing, Eckler 915, he's averaging 4.4 yards. Then you got Travis Etienne. He's over 1,000 yards, over 5 yards a carry. And you look at receivers, Christian Kirk. He's got very, very good numbers, better numbers than Keenan Allen.
Yeah. Some of
I'm
that's
taking
injury though related, because
right, right.
on the Charger side they tend to have missed some games in there. Now I will admit that I didn't realize Etienne was over 1,000 yards, even though he was splitting carries with Robinson in the beginning of the year. So that's impressive. All right, rookie. There you go.
I think I don't know. I would imagine. I think maybe you got these doubled up, but if you look at this offensively speaking, passing the ball, the Chargers are ranked third, but rushing wise, they're ranked 30th, where Jacksonville's 14th in rushing. I think it's a pretty even game. I think Jacksonville. I like Jacksonville at home. I like them covering at home. I think Jacksonville's coach is obviously Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson wins a Super Bowl with the Eagles. He's done wonders with the team. Done wonders with Lawrence. I think Jacksonville is going to win this game. I'm not so sure Jacksonville doesn't win 2 games in the playoffs.
Well, that means that you would have Jacksonville beating the Kansas City Chiefs the week after.
I said what I said.
Well, part of me says that I want the Chargers to win for that, that same reason, but it's because I want to see the Chargers beat the Chiefs. I don't know if the Jacksonville Jaguars can, but I think out of all the teams, Jaguars are the ones coming in kind of on, the hottest streak, and I'm not talking about the Bills. But Cincinnati's won a lot in a row, and I think 9 in a row and stuff. Jacksonville has just looked like a different team over the last half of the season. So a lot of people were saying I wouldn't want to face Jacksonville, and I can see why. But
young minds have short memories. I truly believe that, and Jacksonville, for all intents and purposes, is a young team. I'm not saying they will, but I really think that they could.
I'm all for it. No, Jerry, I'm all for it. To be honest with you, I don't care which one wins. I think that Jacksonville is a cooler story. I feel a little bit bad for Herbert saying that, but I think that Jacksonville, going from being the worst in the league last year to making it into the playoffs and then actually winning a playoff game would be a fun story. I just want the better team to win. I don't want the better story to win, because the following week they have to face, the Chiefs. And again, whoever, if we have to face the Chiefs in the championship game, down in Atlanta, that's going to be fun, and it's going to be fun as well. So I'm okay with whatever happens. I've always taught myself over all the years. People are like, who do you want to face in the playoffs? Who do you want to win? I will never, ever, ever say who I want to face, because be careful what you wish for. Be careful who you're picking to win, because if you're picking with your heart, because in the end,
like I did this last week for the college football game.
yes,
yeah, exactly.
But it's always be careful what you wish for, because in my opinion, like if I'm wishing that the Chargers win so that they could beat Kansas City, well then guess what? Well then the Bills got to play a team that just beat, the Jaguars and the Chiefs and come in and riding high. So, but granted, if that's the case, they'd be down in Buffalo, or they'd be up in Buffalo. So
we'll leave this game with this real quick, and you know how I like to always give little tidbits that make me think that I know what I'm talking about, or I'm like digging deep here. But the reason why I think the Jaguars can beat the Chiefs is because if anybody knows Andy Reid and understands what Andy Reid
Doug
is all
Peterson.
about, it is Doug Pederson. He coached for him in Philadelphia as a quality control coach and quarterbacks coach. He was the offense coordinator for the Chiefs from 13 to 15. Um, there's a lot to that.
Yeah.
There's a lot
I
to it.
just think Herbert is more in the mindset right now where he can go toe to toe with Mahomes and not get rattled. But we'll see. We'll see how that all plays out. I'm gonna head over before we take on the Bills game. Just some Bills news to talk about. Obviously, Damar Hamlin was released from the hospital. He was
Yep.
transferred from Cincinnati to Buffalo and then released on Wednesday, so he could start rehabbing at home and with the Bills organization. So definitely happy about that. Beasley was brought up to the active roster, which is another great sign, in my opinion. And Micah Hyde has started his 21-day
Yeah.
window of practicing, which is crazy. Whether or not he ever sees the field during the playoffs is a whole nother question. But I thought the guy's career was over with, and he's out there practicing, which is crazy. And let's give Crowder some love too, because I know so many people are talking about Hyde being active, being brought up with his 21-day window. A lot of people aren't mentioning Crowder. But shout out to Crowder as well. Our injuries right now, we don't have really anything to write home about other than Phillips has been did not participate all week so far, and then McKenzie was limited yesterday, and then today he was a did not participate with his hamstring. So I have a feeling we're pretty healthy.
Yep.
Knock on wood.
Well, this is
So
what we talked about earlier in the year. We had our injury bug early. Phillips are getting. They're just it's a veteran thing. He knows how to play football. With that shoulder, he'll probably have shoulder surgery at the end of the year, I would imagine. I'm pretty sure he has a labral tear. But who would you rather face? Would you rather face young Skylar Thompson, or would you rather face a beat up Teddy Bridgewater?
be careful what you wish for. Statistically, I would want to face Skylar Thompson. But with that being said, we've we've seen more from Bridgewater, obviously over the years, but then this season, Skylar Thompson's actually had more snaps than Bridgewater. So, it's not a lot of tape. You got to, prepare. But yeah, I think that Bridgewater would be a little bit more. I don't want to say professional, more in the zone, more ready for the game. But he dislocated his finger, I believe. So he hasn't really been throwing the ball all that well from my understanding. But again, be careful what you wish for. I'm not going to say, I'd rather take on one or the other. I think I read earlier today that Skylar Thompson is, averaging 5.5 yards for the game. And my brother was at the Miami Jets game, and he was like, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life." On both sides of the ball. He
Right.
was like just terrible, and obviously it came down to Miami winning at the very end with the field goal. Um, so yeah, I think honestly at this point in time, I'm not gonna, I think that out of the we always come up with the three keys of, to a victory and stuff. I had you do it last week. This week I just said be ready. Us as fans can be cocky, and I've put it out on Twitter and Facebook. I've said it over and over again. Us as fans, we could be cocky. We can be like, oh, we're gonna blow them out. But I feel like we did that last year when we went into the Jaguars, and then we looked like idiots. We looked
Right.
terrible, losing 9-6. So just be ready. Control the time of possession. Don't give it. We don't want Tyreek Hill to have chances and Jalen Waddle to have chances. I know Mostert is hurt. I believe he broke a finger or fractured a finger or something. So there's a good chance that he might not be playing. He's still questionable. I don't know if he's been up. No, he might be doubtful. I don't know if he's been upgraded yet, but realistically, if we control the time of possession and we have the ball, we're going to score, and it's going to be an insurmountable point difference. And then the third thing I put is, win the turnover battle. We can't give them the game at all. We can't give them, extra opportunities. So I know it's kind of cliche. We say it every week, don't turn the ball over. But in a game that we should win, and we should win it easily. Um, you know, that's going to be key. And I say we should win it easily. I am not discounting how good the Dolphins defense is, because they have a very good secondary. Their safeties. I'm I'm not looking forward right now. There was one other person. Oh, Armstead, the offense tackle. He's probably doubtful as well. So, I feel like their offense might not get clicking the way our offense will. I just don't want their defense to affect our offense. So,
Defensively, they did a good job last time they played in Buffalo. I know we ended up, having a big fourth quarter when the snow came and all that, but Miami does play us well. They do a good job defensively because they do have a pass rush that gives us problems. They run a good stunt game inside, and it would seem to me that a lot of movement and a lot of slashers gives our offensive line some problems, especially
trying
our
to think of
tackles.
Christian.
Well, one of them's
What's him?
Phillips.
Wilkinson. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
one of
yeah,
them's
Christian
Phillips.
Wilkinson. He's been giving us issues all year. So I agree with the whole pass rush, and I think that they will probably throw everything that they can at us when it comes to the defense.
Do we have any distraction on the football team with Dorsey supposedly interviewing with Charlotte, or not? Yeah,
So
with Carolina.
it gets me every year. I I understand that you have teams out there that are currently sitting at home, and they should have the benefit of the doubt and be able to move forward with their coaching searches. And then you have these people who should be getting coaching jobs that are not, because they're on they're on playoff teams. So I understand allowing them to interview prior
Right.
to the end of the season. A lot of people say you're doing all that preparation in the off season. You're ready for that. It's just a conversation at that point. There's not really any preparation when you go into those meetings. I don't necessarily know if I believe it. I had a problem with it last year with Dayball doing it. I still have a problem with this year with Dorsey doing it. I don't I don't think Dorsey's going to get the job. I don't think he's ready. I think we have another year with him. I think it's kind of, you know, he's going through the interview process to kind of, get himself out there. And he probably thinks, he's ready for the job and he deserves a job, and all, power to him. I just don't think he's there yet. And I, think that there's other qualified candidates out there that, are more qualified for the job. And I think this is, just familiarity with the Panthers and whatnot. So that being said, I don't like it. I do think that it's a little bit of a distraction. And I think that Daboll kind of proved that a couple years ago when he did it, and then we looked kind of terrible in the wild card matchup. So I'm not a fan. The second I found out about it, I was texting a couple people I was like, God, I hate this. I hate that they can interview during the postseason, because it does, in my opinion, it does take, at least emotional toll, and you're taking your mind off of the game at hand. So
I personally, I don't think Dorsey knows what offense he's running yet, let alone be the head coach of an NFL football team. I still think identity wise, we struggle. We lack some identity in what we do. I think last week our best play was Josh scramble, receiver, you go deep, throw it as far as we can, catch the ball. It will be interesting to see. I think they'll be fine. But I would like to see a little bit more identity out of our offense. Now, one thing is nice. I would say probably our second best play, other than go deep, I'll throw it to you, is our kick return team. And Naeem Hines, I guess we finally figured out a way to put the football in his hands. Two tremendous kick returns, AFC Special Team Player of the Week. But it's crazy is if you looked at the news lately, the reason he got traded is because the Colts have the number one kick return man in the NFL. And to think that Hines was the second
Right.
best kick returner on that team is crazy. Unfortunately, we don't want him to have a lot of returns because that means the other team has scored. But still, Hines has been tremendous. They got to find a way, I think, and maybe they do it in the offseason. Got to find a way to get him in the offense. They really do.
Yeah.
I don't know how they
Which,
do it. They
I
really do.
mean, if there's a lot of discussion about whether or not Singletary will be back. So if not, then I think that there's a good potential that Hines does become our number two. Um, we'll see what that happens. I wasn't a huge proponent of having Cook as our number one. I have been quickly hushed over the last few weeks. He's just been playing outstanding. And I feel like he's finally starting to get into a rhythm and he feels comfortable. In the beginning, I was very nervous when he, was handling the ball. He looked confused and I felt like he was in his own head too much. And I felt like with
Right.
that comes fumbles and drop passes and everything that he was doing in the beginning of the year. So
The
I'm looking
thing, the,
forward to him continuing to grow. So
the thing I like about Cook is that he seems to be our one true zone runner. A zone runner as far as his style of running. He is a zone runner. He can hop backside and get back behind the guard. But before we lose it, Carl makes a good point in the comments. If you wanted to pull it up, he says, and I'm paraphrasing, he brings up that whole coaching search and he says, they're interviewing Dorsey, but really should they be interviewing Leslie Frazier? Is Leslie Frazier more of a candidate as far as a head coach goes than Dorsey? And I say yes. I mean, I think
yeah,
Leslie deserves another chance.
I do too. And I
I
think that
really
he'll
do.
get it. I think he'll get at least the interviews. And I don't even want to get into the reasons why he'll be interviewed just for the sakes of being interviewed. But I do think that he deserves another shot. And honestly, as much as I love Frazier, I feel like the defense, the way it's set up, I think we would go internal. So I think it'd be a lot less of a loss because I think we would continue with the same defense, just with some added hiccups and changes going
Right.
into next year. But I think he'll get the interviews. It's just whether or not people will finally give him that chance. And right now, it seems like a lot of people are looking for the young, hip, new football
Well, it's just
minds
like
to.
what Houston. It's just like what Houston did to Lovie Smith.
Lovey didn't get a
You're
chance. It's
he never got a
terrible.
chance because he didn't build the franchise. They gave him nothing, and then they run him out after
One
one.
year.
Yeah, and they're like, it's a joke what we're doing, and as far as ownership goes in this league, and I get it. The young hip guy is the guy to go after anymore, but. Come on now, there's a lot of really good football coaches in this league. There's a lot of franchises that have shown you can win games with experienced coaches. Look at Jacksonville right now. We talked about it earlier with Doug Pederson and what he's doing. I understand for all the Eagles and the Nick Siriannis and all those things, there's guys like Doug and other coaches out there that have coached a long, long time that are experienced and deserves these opportunities. And I think Leslie Frazier is one of those guys, and I think he will get another shot. But we got to check ourselves with what we're doing with some of these coaching hirings and firings.
I agree. So last but not least, as we close out
You never asked me who was going to win.
who's gonna win? I didn't give my score prediction either. It's 34-16 Bills.
Yeah, I'm about there too. I think they cover the 13. I think maybe it's a little dicey early, and then they take it over like they've been doing. But
I actually think we
hopefully,
might sit some of our starters the second half. That's why I didn't have it,
please, yeah,
being a blowout. So
that's what I hope.
fingers crossed that's what happens. I've actually been a little surprised that we've kept Josh in towards the end of some of these games, even if it's just the victory formation. It's kind of been crazy. I'm like, last week I was like, get Josh off the field, what are you guys doing?
Right.
All right, but with that being said, as we close out, so the next couple of weeks we're going to be talking about these, obviously the playoffs still, but we're also going to be talking about some of these wonderful seniors that are going to be heading to the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl.
East West Shrine
We
game.
Yes, we are going to be heading out to the Senior Bowl, though, live. So we're going to be having some of the practices on Twitter. some photos, some content, everything that you guys want to know. Obviously, we'll be touching base on, a few of the positional, you know, uh, impacts, the different players that we think might be worth drafting. We have definitely some differences of opinions of where we need to go, whether it's offensive line, wide receiver. So it'll be fun to start talking about that over the next couple of weeks, and then to be able to see them at the Senior Bowl. I'm a little disappointed that the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl are the East-West game. They are the same week this year, so I can't do both, unfortunately. So I will be at the Senior Bowl. So if you guys, want any of that good content, make sure to follow us on Twitter, and we'll be sharing it all week long, and then obviously talking about it that Thursday night.
The Senior Bowl is the most important of all of them. East West Shrine's nice, but the Senior Bowl's the daddy because it's run by the NFL and you get coached by NFL staff. So
Not this year. So just to let
really?
you know, and that's what got me looking at it, is this year they actually are switching it on and off. So for the first year, the Shrine Bowl is getting, I know they're getting the Patriots coaching staff and one other coaching staff. So yes, it's actually the off year. They just announced it today that the Shrine Bowl is actually getting the NFL coaching staff. So, with that being said, most of the people have already committed to whatever bowl they're going to. So I don't think it's going to change of who's going to what bowl. I've been looking at, who's been invited to both, and definitely excited about the Senior Bowl and
So
who I'm going to get to win.
is the East West Shrine game now contractually obligated with the NFL? Are they tied to the NFL
They're
as well?
both. They're both. Yes.
Now. They're doing both. Okay.
And they're going to do it. Yeah. And then the East West Shrine has now been moved out to Vegas.
Right.
And then the Senior
Bowl's
Bowl
in
is still
Mobile.
in Mobile. Yep.
Yeah, and they actually have a nicer stadium to play in now with South Alabama getting Division I teams. So I actually played in the Senior Bowl. I went to the Senior Bowl. It's an interesting event. It's the evaluation process is amazing. But I'm excited, man. We're going to have some really good content as far as players go. We'll talk about, should the Bills draft a wide receiver with the first 4 rounds of the draft, and we'll just get 4 wideouts in a row, and we'll call it a day.
One of them's got to pan out, right?
Yeah, it's just the way pro football is. It's so funny how starved we were for a quarterback that he did throw another red zone interception last week, by the way. I don't know if you want to bring that up, but
yeah, no.
I'm looking forwid to it.
I think it's 5. So
yeah, I love player eval, and I think if everything goes well, we'll probably have our first. If everything goes well, I want it to go. We'll have our first Buffalo Rumblings mock draft, our mock first round draft, and various members of the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast network will be hopping in and making picks. And maybe we'll even have a somebody that watches 1 or 2 chime in as well. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's definitely got a lot of fun things coming up this off season. So we could probably have kept it going over quite a bit. I know that I kind of wanted to touch on Gabe Davis a little bit, but I won't. I think we've all touched on it enough. So do you want to take us out?
I just want somebody that, and I'm going to do it. I will break down the offensive numbers at some point. We'll talk about how the production numbers were not as good as the year before, and it had to do with somebody else, not necessarily the guys catching. But that drop the other day wasn't very good. I will say that. But
you mean
anyway,
the one out of the 10 that?
Well, I've got so many bones to pick with people.
He was 3 of 10. Come on. Anyways. All right, do you want to take us out of here before I start ranting?
Now you can't regurgitate everything that Spence says, okay?
No, he probably got my tweet because I tweeted it.
Oh, so I want to. So okay, good. Spence is regurgitating what you said.
I put it in the comment, not the tweet. I tweeted it, but I also put it in the comment. So he read my comment yesterday.
Because we never, attempts. The ball thrown to a receiver and actually being where it's supposed to be when it's thrown to a receiver are 2 separate things. But we'll talk about that later. Just like everybody needs to keep Dawson Knox's name out their mouth too. That's
one catch. Woo.
If you guys are going to ride for a number 2 receiver, I'm riding for Dawson Knox. That's what I'm riding for, because I think he gets terribly too much grief for what.
Well, I think he's come on later in the year. I think that he had his moments in the beginning of the year. Obviously, he was going through the death of his brother, but he had a lot of drops in the beginning of the year, and I think he's been doing a lot better. He had a ridiculous catch last weekend, ridiculous, one-handed. Oh, it was awesome, loved it.
He did.
But yes, I think that we need to get him more involved. I definitely think he needs to get more involved.
Yep. So we'll talk about that more next week. We'll talk about the Senior Bowl and some positions as we move forward. Senior Bowl and these first round games, some of our prospects for this season's or this upcoming year's NFL draft. But once again, great news on Damar Hamlin. I don't know what would happen if they walk him out in the end zone for the pregame. I don't know if I don't know if we need to do that. Maybe we save that for later, but so happy to hear that he's out of the hospital and back with his family where he belongs. We got a lot of games this weekend. As we talked about, Dolphins, Bills, Ravens, Bengals, Chargers, Jaguars, Seahawks, Niners, Giants, Vikings, Cowboys, Bucks. Lots of football left to go. We'll be bringing all that stuff to you, the NFL playoffs, the NFL offseason, college football. It's all going to be right here on the Three-Man Rush. She is Sara Larson. I am the Big O, Jerry Ostroski. You've been listening to the Three-Man Rush on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. And as always, one love, Buffalo. Go Bills.
Go Bills.